Good morning. Welcome to United. My name is Chad Lantow, and I'm the worship facilitator for today's service. Childcare will be available through RE today, and we're glad to have Patty Keys as our guest speaker. She will also be providing some music. It's great to see you all today. I want to extend a special welcome to visitors and guests. I hope you will all join us after the services for coffee and conversation. One note is our music today was, and will be at the end again, Trios Beneros Diobrat Mishra.
So yes, I did buy Diobrat Mishra's music while in India. And so here, there's the question of why I even went on a pilgrimage and why I would bring it into this context. The first moment I saw this in my email, I found it had set a hook. Several of the communities that these red dots represent already held meaning for me, and those I didn't recognize sparked curiosity. India has long been a place I wanted to get to see. The organizer of the adventure I knew before embarking, and soon I began to consider it seriously. I recognized that putting my trust in her ability to plan for others was going to mean the opportunity of a lifetime. The more I grew to understand where we would visit, the more it resonated with my spirit. I had conversations with people who knew me well, people who were also planning to go from other states, and people who wished they could join the pilgrimage. Eventually, the sense that I was being swept along because I was simply meant to do this became very strong, and nothing could sway me any longer. Faith and trust led me forward. A pilgrimage, in some cultures, is a definite part of life, just a matter of when. Every worry or inclination towards staying safely at home was dispelled. What I could experience outweighed all of that. By going, I'd see and feel the presence of the wonders of the world, or at least one of them. The bits of history that I did know were incomplete, but I knew that India wrestled for independence from British rule and for religious freedom during the life of Mahatma Mohandas Gandhi, that Mother Teresa made it her adopted home for decades, and that the people of Tibet have been dislocated longer than I've been living, and often unable to safely observe their own religious customs without discrimination. Their primary spiritual leader, the 14th Dalai Lama, might actually be in India when I got there, although he travels extensively. Being able to place myself where Buddhist, Vedic, Islamic, and Christian believers were beside me would be like an eclipse, rare and far beyond trying to make a connection through my dance circle practices.
Each Sunday, we light our flaming chalice, a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Please join me in saying the words here on the wall. May this flame kindle within us the warmth of compassion, the glow of love, the fire of commitment, and the light of truth. Here together, we scatter and nurture seeds of spirit, service, and community. Please join us in singing hymn number 1024 on the wall.
Okay. If we'd had Alex, he would play an intro. It would sound something like this. I almost brought a canoe, a canoe. I almost brought a kazoo, but I got over it. Now look at that part that says 5 times. And here you go. You got to do when the Spirit says do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you got to do, oh Lord. You got to do when the Spirit says do. 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 You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you got to sing, oh Lord. You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. 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 You got to fly when the Spirit says fly. You got to fly when the Spirit says fly. When the Spirit says fly, you got to fly, oh Lord. You got to fly when the Spirit says fly. 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 You got to dance when the Spirit says dance. You got to dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you got to dance, oh Lord. You got to dance when the Spirit says dance. 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 Spirit says do. One more. Yep. It's okay. He's coming. The words of the mantra here, they are both in the Sanskrit and the Tibetan language. They are sent out in much the same way as we send the ripples of our joys and sorrows to become part of the collective and compassionate makings of the whole cosmos. It's a worldwide prayer. Today, it's our prayer.
We build our sense of community by sharing milestones in our individual lives, those joys and sorrows that make up who we are. If you have something to share, please come forward to the microphone, tell us your name and what's on your mind. Take a stone from the bowl as you do so, and when you are finished, place the stone in the bowl with the water and let the ripples carry your concerns out to the wider community.
By the way, I'm Susan, and this is my helper.
My name is Molly. Our congregation collects toiletries, and so far we've collected 3,978 items. We only need 22 more items to go, and we'll have 4,000 items. We're hoping you'll be able to donate some of the items you get on your travels.
So we want all of you to go traveling and collect some items for us. Or you can go to the dentist and you can donate the toothbrushes.
I'll be quick. I'm Paul, and after coffee hour today, Susan and I are going down to Mitchell Field to pick up our daughter, son-in-law, and our 2 grandchildren. We're going to be with them all this coming week, and with a bit of luck, we'll be able to convince them that they're going to have a good time if they come next Sunday, and you can meet them all.
Hi, I'm Donna. So yesterday there was an auction item, and some of us gathered at Jenny's house for pavlova. And so we had lots of savory good things, and then we had fantastic pavlova, and I had 2 servings. Who can resist?
My name is Molly again, and I have many joys. Some of you might have known that I went to California last week, and it was very fun. I got many fun stuff there, and we got a lot done in my grandparents' house, so we're able to move them pretty soon. And Chet came and cut down our tree. Well, not cut down, but he gave it a very, very big haircut. But now there is stuff all over the yard. So we're hoping that he actually comes back on Monday and cleans it up. But yeah, that was good. And then I'm leaving tomorrow to go to California again. So that's gonna be fun, I guess. So wait, do you wanna come pick out a lock for me?
All right, put one in for Molly.
Pick any stone. Can we put this one in? I like that one.
No water today, just stones.
Oh, can you put this pretty one in?
That's a good one. Okay. Are you going to stay here with me? Okay. Hi, I'm Sarah. There were actually 2 auction items I got to do yesterday. So I got to have pavlova at Jenny's, which was amazing. So, although I'm going to tell you all it was terrible so that you don't bid on it, because I'm going to want to go again next year. And then Molly and Isabel came too. So I think they each had 2 servings at least, maybe more. Okay, Molly served, yes. That one's perfect. And then last night we had Alex's concert here too, for those of you who were here. It was very, very nice. We had to cut it slightly short because we were a little worried about the weather. But if you didn't come to that this year, I would highly encourage you to come next year because it's really fun. And he takes requests, so start thinking of stuff. Okay, can you put that in for me? Okay, thank you. Let's go.
I'll place one last stone for those joys and sorrows that remain unspoken in our hearts and minds. Let us carry these into the days and weeks ahead.
Walking with you is our prayer. We're now to the time for all ages. Chad left his boys home. I'm glad that there are a few people of all other ages here. We're going to learn something. I'd like you to come up here to learn it. Okay. So, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has advice for all different ages of people. I'm going to share some of the advice that he has shared for our youngest. Okay? And that's it. This sings this way. Never give up, never give up, no matter what is happening. Never give up, never give up, never give up, no matter what is happening around you. Never give up, never give up, never give up, never, 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 never give up. Okay? So that's what we sang while I was on the pilgrimage at 2 different schools. I'm hoping you all can hear me because I'm just not going to play the microphone. Okay. The recording can't, but forward. We went to 2 different schools, one in India and one in Nepal. And we danced and sang with the children. And there were a lot more there than there are today. And some of them thought they knew what to do, and some of them thought they could never do something like that, and some in between. But I think you can do it. So, do you think if you stood up and I taught you to dance, you Anybody want to add yourself to the children's circle? That's what I thought. All right. So, take hands here and make a circle. Actually, go just a little bit over here. And Aaron can play the camera game because I won't go here. This is one. All right, we're going to go this way, like counterclockwise. Okay? This way. And then we're going to stop and go this way. All right. And then we're going to stop, plant our feet, and stand up. Oh, we don't want to do that, right? Okay. I can't drum and sing and hold hands and dance yet. Yet. Never give up, though. But you never give up because honestly, you might be able to do it if you try. Go this way. You guys hold hands. Okay. Never give up. Never give up. No matter what's happening, never give up. This way. Never give up. Never give up. No matter what's happening around you. Stop. Never give up. Never give up. Never give up. Never, never, never give up. Never give up. Never give up. No matter what's happening, never give up. Never give up. Never give up. No matter what is happening around you, never give up. Never give up, never give up, never, never, never give up. You did wonderful. We do it for longer, but you know what? If there was somebody playing the piano and not the drum, we do it for longer. We are happy with that much. This part you all know. And once again, this is all the music there is. Go lift it up, love bless your way. Moonlight, starlight, guide your journey into peace and the brightness of day. So the reading that is up here for the meditation came to all of the pilgrims who were on this trip before we left our respective countries. We didn't know one another. No one on the trip knew more than 2 other people. Most of the people only knew one other person. And some people came just sure that they would make new friends. I'm going to read this because it helped to frame the whole idea of pilgrimage. Let's be curious about each other. When we are personally engaged, we start to care. When we care, we become more forgiving. When we are more forgiving, people stop annoying us. That happens internally, by the way. The people do what they do, but the annoyance changes. When we stop being annoyed, we fall into each other, and we want to protect and honor the other. So after that came to me, I knew I was going to be able to fall into this pilgrimage. And one of the others on the pilgrimage made it into a bookmark and laminated it, and we all have a copy of that. Okay. The Dalai Lama was in India. He was not supposed to be. His travel plans were, they were canceled by rain. We just had some talking about shortening our concert last night because rain and flooding was a possibility. Because he was warned that flooding was a possibility, he was present in the city that we hoped to see him in. But we had been told beforehand that he wouldn't be there. And we had accepted that. It's not giving up, it's acceptance. But he was there. And it was amazing. I have 2 groups of slides to show you. The first group is based in what the pilgrimage experience was to see the sights of the Buddha's life. And the second set will come after the offertory and some other parts of our morning together. So first I have to do the thing that will make me the most ready. Okay. So, on October 28th, which was not October 13th, the first day of the trip, we were at the central part of what we were visiting. We went to Nepal. This is the first part of the Buddha's life journey, where he was born in Lumbini. The slide on the side here shows what kind of excavated history we stumbled upon in many places. The The building in the background was built later, and it's actually not in Lumbini. But the bricks with the moss and those are the ruins of buildings that once were there, and the walls were wood. And they were, how many? 600 years old when they were wood? They're gone. And a lot of other things have happened in between times because India is a country where the borders have changed because of different invasions. Even if the walls were still standing, some invaders burnt them. But Lumbini is still there and is, at this point, an archaeologically protected site. The statue showing the baby being presented to the queen, the women here are probably, oh yes, you just sit down nicely and your baby is presented to you. Ha. Okay. There were many holy and revered destinations, but because this was the birthplace, it was one of the most special ones. In the second slide here, you see this overarching gate. Many places in that part of the world have a gate. Some of them are very ornate and lit up, and they're a presence of we're coming through and entering this area. When we as pilgrims came through to enter this particular temple, there's a space outside it where everyone removes their shoes. And there's a space outside of a lot of places in India and Nepal where it's simply a custom, it's known, you're going to remove your shoes. So I'm taking this picture from where I left my shoes. We saw bells and temples, peaks. We saw natural and man-made markers that transcend language. They tell you the holy experience is right here. It's a different audio visual than we get to depend on from Aaron. Here's the bell, ring it. We went to Bodh Gaya, which is a city. If I still had the map up there, we went from red dot to red dot distance. The Bodhi tree is the tree under which the Buddha sat when he experienced his enlightenment. And other nearby local places have offshoots of that tree. It's an extremely rare thing to get to be able to have a seed or even a leaf from that tree. And I have to tell you that no one on the pilgrimage took this largest picture. It is a stock picture that I decided was going in the slideshow because they not only protect their archaeological sites, they protect that tree. If they didn't, if you think about what goes on in our own national parks, people would come and say, it won't matter if I take just one leaf. It won't matter if I swing from these branches. If you look right above the monk's head, you can see there are posts, the kind that people use to raise the floor in their basement, or raise the joists in their basement. There are posts holding the branches of that tree in place so that as little as possible of it will fall apart, because it is a central pilgrimage site. The lower picture has pretty close to everybody who was on the pilgrimage, but I'll get you a bigger picture later and tell you who was there. The top picture that looks like an elephant is actually topiary geopet. It was kind of amazing to me, and I didn't get any pictures of the actual elephants walking in the streets, but some people did, because there were actual elephants walking in the streets. We visited rivers, we visited ruins, we visited where there are relics, and some of the relics are this stone type that you see, but some of them are the calcified, I guess is the best word, remains of beings after cremation. The things that are not ash are sorted out and like kept under glass in museum kind of things and marked with just whose remains these are. And some of them are amazingly beautiful. They look like pearls. The picture that we had just seen, and these are all at the river Ganges, which is one of the 3 holy rivers in India. The one at night, we are out. It was our first boating outing. The small cups of marigolds with a candle in them, we went out and floated them on the river, which was a ceremonial thing we did. We went out again the very next morning for the sunrise. Yes, we were out late and on water, and then we were out again early and back on the boat and on water. But in a pilgrimage setting, you don't say, well, some people did say, I can't do that. Catch me when you get back. But you find it in you to go. The following evening, we were on the rooftop dancing and overlooking the Ganges. And I could tell you a lot more about the Ganges, but I've committed to change the slide more often. Okay. The city of Varanasi, or Benares, it depends on whose map and whose language you're speaking, on the Ganges River, has what are called the Ghats. The Ghats are places where people bring their dead to have their cremation ceremonial at the riverside because it is the holiest place you could possibly die and the holiest place you could possibly be cremated. It helps develop more of what you are hoping for your next rebirth, because it's that kind of culture and that kind of religious thought. In the evening, we did see many ceremonies going on these steps. Okay. The top picture here, we are, after our evening boating, we went to see, and I did not write down this man's name, and I'm sorry, but we went to see a scientist who is working diligently to help make water treatment and cleanliness a goal throughout India, but especially of the Ganges, because they depend on that water supply, except they also have many customs that soil that water supply and underdeveloped systems to be able to clean it the way we depend on clean water. You can tell from the lower picture that the cremation burning is going on that close to the water. I don't have, but I wish I had a picture of the morning there are people bathing in the water, because it's a ceremonial thing to bathe in that. This last picture is from nearby, but we did a lot of climbing. That happens to be steps. We had a lot of places where we had to climb more difficult terrain, and the air quality, I looked a few times at the air quality on my phone, and then I decided to stop looking because it was better to not know. One of the destinations that we went up a difficult ascent to was Vulture's Peak. It is where the Buddha did a great deal of his teachings or sermons, and the signs, the blue signs, say that it's protected by the Archaeological Department of India and what will happen to you if you mess it up. The central image looks like Buddha with his ribs showing, because there was a period of his life when he was not taking nourishment because he was bringing that aesthetic I don't know if anyone here has ever fasted, but something does happen when your body is not dependent on food. But you can see in front of that statue rings of flowers and other offerings that are made by pilgrims on their way up past this cave. And at the top, there is a pilgrim who's actually prostrate with her forehead on the ground in front of all the offerings at the top. Yeah, it took all day. So, this is Vaishali, another famous city. The orders of nuns and monks were formed there. Meditation, they would sit in meditation in silence. There is a monk in that picture. He is very tiny and up in the tree. If you can see him, he is sitting. But walking meditation, sitting meditation, and just hearing the teachings of the Dharma happened in places like this. The second place is a stupa. The multiple stupas that we went to visit, the thing that you do is circumambulate them. Talk about that in a minute. This one is a little easier for you to see that. What's here is the ancient stupa and the modern city coincide. You drive just a little way, ride your bicycle or motorcycle just a little way, and you're here. What circumambulating means is you go and walk. You approach it, walk clockwise around it. Many people will walk a prescribed number of times, 4 or more. And all the while you are saying whatever mantra or prayer you have decided that you will tie to that. In many cases, it's Om Mani Padme Hum. Okay, can't skip them. The picture that's central is taken from outside the wall of Nalanda University. Nalanda was burned centuries ago during a period when this area was controlled by non-Buddhists. It's said that the library alone of the collected documents that were there burned for 3 days before it went out. The red brick is all that's left. Anything that was wood, of course, would be gone, but the sad part is that all the documents also are gone. So it's one of the largest places to go to see, and you can kind of tell it's all out in the sun, and if we had made it to spend a day there, we would have all been heat sick. But down in the bottom is a tiny shrine. It's the shrine to Sujata, who her small act of offering the Buddha milk and rice when he was nearly going to expire from not eating actually preceded the sitting under the Bodhi tree when he decided it was not unreasonable to eat again, was when he actually came to the point that he sorted it all out and was enlightened. The relics were dispersed. Buddha's relics went to 8 different places, and while that is both traditional, it's also protective. If we have one burial in our country, in our culture, we have one place with one headstone. If someone invaded, came from the northern Great Lakes and took over and decided that all of those graveyards, or should I say Indian mounds, needed to be destroyed, there would be nothing left, which is part of the impetus to take portions of remains and disperse them to several places, because if 1 or 2 are lost and there are 8, they are not all lost. The other photo there is of an Ashoka pillar. That one has a lion on the top. Ashoka was a king. I'm There's so much I can tell you, and there's so much I can't, and I didn't write every note of everything. Ashoka was a king hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and Buddhism was his religion. It was not always the state religion, and it's not now in India. But Ashoka erected pillars in some important places. Later, some of them were knocked down because infidels had put them up. This one remains by this particular stupa, and it's rare that a place has both the holy site and the pillar. So I knew it wouldn't come up in this room with this lighting, but that picture shows the full moon pretty much above the woman's left hand. We were able to travel to this particular site on the day the moon was full and rose during the daytime, which is a very auspicious occasion, pretty fabulous for us. This is one of the places where Buddha's remains are enshrined, and they are protected by the fence from people who think they need to get in there and touch it, and protected by the canopy from rain. And they're also protected by the opening from having the humid air make things moldy and unappealing to go visit. This statue of the sleeping Buddha is in Kushinagar, one of the cities that we visited, and we actually processed in and laid that covering as a group. This is only half of the group actually shown here because the other half is on this side and had their own part of the cloth when we laid it. There were this is like the kind of thing where buses full of tourists from every country imaginable come and say their prayers and do what we did or not. Okay. This stupa is an international monument where many different groups pooled funds in order to build it and in order to decorate it. And it also is protected by like a national park kind of, they're going to make sure you take off your shoes. They're watching. But you go up this first group of stairs and you circumambulate by the first railing. Then you go up the next group of stairs and you circumambulate by the next railing. Then you go up where you can see the people, you circumambulate by that railing. The prayer that's going on in your mind and heart and your body is adding resonance to the prayers of all the people who built it and all the people who have visited it. I have 8 pictures of the scenes from this particular garden outside one of the temples that we visited. These scenes depict, the one on the top is Buddha taking birth. And out he comes with the truth. And his mother is hanging on to the branch of a tree because the legend says she was outdoors and could not get inside into any other kind of care. So she gripped the tree and was helped through the process. The one where he's with the horse is when he left the palace and realized what suffering was going on outside the walls. And the last is him laying near his death with his disciples. So this is a picture of things going on in the marketplace. The first part, you can tell that there's all these are all flowers, strands of flowers strung together on rope like leis and strung together in shorter things that you can wear around your wrist. It's an actual industry. You go buy the flowers, and then you take the flowers to the temple or to the statue or to what you're visiting and leave them there as an offering so that the deity will recognize and honor your prayer. We have fair trade things that I'll talk about in a little bit. And the fruits and vegetables and nuts and spices are, you stop in the street. You stop on your bicycle, motorcycle, or minibus and say, I need bananas, and that's how it goes. So, because we've just stopped to talk about commerce and offering, guess what time it is?
Each week in our church, we take up an offering. It's good to remind ourselves that the offering is symbolic as well as practical. Through pledges, we build our budget and fund our yearly programs and ministries of worship and religious education, pay our staff and professional religious leaders, and finance the comfort and beauty of our building. And we know that we could easily submit those pledge checks to the church at any convenient time, but we pass the plate during worship to make a community expression of thanks for the blessings of abundance. Our offering says that the act of giving is an essential to our spiritual well-being as anything else we do here on a Sunday morning. The morning offering will now be received.
Need to tell you something just about Olga. Olga, one of the pilgrims with us, came from Russia during wartime with the economy very depleted there and a lot of difficulty. So she had multiple financial sponsors and the capability to make a video of that type. So she spent a lot of her time documenting what we were doing so that she could help people understand what they had allowed her to do. When we were leaving India, we had an article shared with us by Anahata, written by Pema Chodron. So it's our reading today. It's called renunciation. That's not a word we use a great deal, but here's something about it. When people take refuge in a formal ceremony of becoming a Buddhist, they receive a name that indicates how they should work. I've noticed that when people get the name renunciation, they hate it. But what one is renouncing is closing down and shutting off from life. You could say that renunciation is the same thing as opening to the teachings of the present moment. Renunciation is realizing that our nostalgia for wanting to stay in a protected, limited, petty world is insane. Once you begin to get the feeling of how big the world is and how vast our potential for experiencing life is, then you really begin to understand renunciation. When we sit in meditation, we feel our breath as it goes out, and we have some sense of willingness to just be open to the present moment. Then our minds wander off into all kinds of stories and fabrications and manufactured realities, and we say to ourselves, it's thinking. We say that with a lot of gentleness and a lot of precision. Every time we are willing to let go of the storyline, and every time we are willing to let go at the end of the out-breath, that's fundamental renunciation. Learning how to let go of holding on and holding back. So renunciation is seeing clearly how we hold back, how we pull away, how we shut down, how we close off, and then learning how to open. It's about saying yes to whatever is put on your plate, whatever knocks on your door, whatever calls you up on your telephone. How we actually do that has to do with coming up against our edge, which is actually the moment when we learn what renunciation means. Sooner or later, everybody meets his or her own edge. How do we renounce? How do we work with this tendency to block and to freeze and to refuse to take another step toward the unknown? If our edge is like a huge stone wall with a door in it, how do we learn to open the door and step through it again and again so that life becomes a process of growing up, becoming more and more fearless and flexible? Whenever you realize you've met your edge, rather than think, I have made a mistake, you can acknowledge the present moment and its teaching. You can hear the message, which is simply that you're saying no. The instruction is to soften, to connect with your heart, and engender a basic attitude of generosity and compassion toward yourself. The journey of awakening is one of continually coming up against big challenges and then learning how to soften and open. In other words, the paralyzing quality seems to be hardening and refusing, and the letting go or the renunciation of that attitude is simply feeling the whole thing in your heart, letting it touch your heart. You soften and feel compassion for your predicament, for the whole human condition. You soften so that you can actually sit there with those troubling feelings and let them soften you more. So this is the second pile of slides. Aaron, if you will set this to change every 15 seconds, you can't? Okay, I can't either because I can't get the bottom cursor. Okay, we'll just use my mind to change every 15 seconds. All right. So we began the pilgrimage by joining one another in Delhi because it's a major airport. And we were able to have a puja, which is a purification ceremony, with this man and his children. This was our first night of concert. But before we ever got there, we loaded on our bus and a wedding parade went past us. The man on the horse, mounted on the white horse, is on the way to his own wedding, and a band followed him. So as we began our pilgrimage, a band, we thought everything was up from there. And it was when we softened and let go of a few things. This is a picture of some of the kinds of foods we were served. We had many of our meals kind of more buffet style so that if you thought you would eat it, you could eat that. We had many, many endless cups of chai tea. And in a couple situations, particularly one when we didn't get a meal and we were loading the train, we learned about all of the things that are sold as Indian snacks, most of which are too hot to eat. We did some bonding. We were in close quarters. That minibus seats 16, and we had a lot of luggage in it. There were 13 of us. The luggage could have taken up enough spaces for 6 people, but we forced it all into a condensed pile, so there was room for us. We also traveled by a thing called tuk-tuk, which is sort of a taxi and sort of a rickshaw and sort of a thing built around a lawnmower motor that that will let you ride in it kind of like a golf cart, only not. And we stopped along the ways and found that many, many places where a person would toilet do not have toilet paper because it's just not their thing. So we're in line here passing it to one another. And you renounce the thing about, I need this. I can't live without this. It's like, but I'm going to stay here for the next 25 days, so I'm going to live without this. Yeah, we bonded. This is the interior and the exterior of the train, and at the train station while you're waiting, they will sell you a large piece of plastic that you can use to lie down on that is cleaner than the concrete. The beds are down 6 bunks facing each other and 2 more bunks facing each other. There is no private room. You renounce that. These are the people from actually the United States, the people besides myself who had United States passports. The first one here standing by the map of foods of India is Linda, who lives in Iowa. France lives in Louisiana. Andrea actually lives in Nepal, and she's been there for at least 50 years, but she maintains a U.S. passport. And Carolyn Shakura lives sometimes in Michigan and sometimes in Arkansas, depending on which weather. And if you look behind her, she's standing where cash transactions are taken, and the Dalai Lama is over one shoulder and Mahatma Gandhi is over the other, because what else would you put up where your cash register is? This is the rest of the group. Tammy didn't get in several of our pictures that were group pictures, but she came from Brazil. Peter from Australia. it happens to me all the time. Okay. I'm not going to do all the names. I'm sitting in the center with a bunch of people on the steps at one of our stops. The people along the bottom are native to that area of the world. Shakshi joined us when we arrived in Nepal. Sador left us when we finished the India tour because he had to get back to Minneapolis, where he lives. And Pabitra also lives in Nepal. My very first day in India, I did travel alone. I got a taxi and it took me to the National Gandhi Museum, which I wanted to see, and to the Baha'i Lotus Temple. And then in the center there, we together went after our puja to the tomb of Hazrat Inayat Khan, who is a primary in the Sufism religion. This is me looking a lot happier because we were in good air quality and I'd had a good sleep. That was on the wall of my hotel room and the sights from outside that window. We were at the Buddha Hotel. We then went to see Norbolinka Institute. This used to be the palace and residence of the Dalai Lama before they built what he now lives in Dharamsala. This is an amazing place built with like sacred geometry. Everything has a mirror image on the other side, inside and out. You can see where she's on the steps that everything beside her looks the same. And we came across many fabric painted and wood carved and statuary depictions of the Buddha. We went to Dharamsala, which is where the Tibetan government in exile is centered now. The many prayer flags, I could have shown you all pictures of prayer flags all day. The central statue is of Tara and some jade elephants. This is where we were when we had audience with the Dalai Lama. This is one of the evenings we had a performer who made his instruments and played them for us. We also, in Dharamsala, had our first experiences of monkeys entertaining us, who we didn't have to make sure had their instruments. We also had moments of quieting. The picture towards sunset is one of the first moments when I was just alone in my hotel room for just 20 minutes. And I went out on the balcony and went, and took the picture. But even walking places, you'd stop and read something, and as people kept going, it changed who you were walking with, and it also changed what your mind would take on. The last line on this sign says, "You will rest in happiness and peace." I told the kids when we danced that we danced with other children at schools. We went to the Tibetan Children's Village, which is a boarding school and has children of parentage lineage that they're not children who escaped Tibet. Their parents and grandparents escaped Tibet, but they still don't have a citizenship that leads to good standing, much like our undocumented citizens. But we danced with them, and some of us sponsored a single child in the school. So this Cerez is with the child that she sponsors in this picture, and you can tell they're both really pretty pleased about it. The sign on the stairs, I'm looking for, yes. It says others before self, which is essentially the way of living, but the kids live in a barracks dormitory type thing, 20-something together. without a lot of personal space. So they're doing what we did the whole time. Dolls for Tibet is a cooperative that makes and sells internationally. There's actually a book about a Tibetan girl, and you can buy the 6 or 7 dolls that go with it, which is wonderful. We went to Sopema or Rawazar Lake, it depends on what you want to call it, Lotus Lake. Padmasambhava and Princess Mandavara is a whole nother legend that I'm going to not share with you. But above the city, way up near the top, there is this massive statue, and we circumambulated the lake, walked around multiple times, and then we went up to go circumambulate the base of the statue. Shrine to the princess was built into the cave. There was also, just walking through downtown, this picture of Ganesha was in someone's yard, their garden, to honor. Another walk when we went up, we were lighting butter lamps, which is a way to leave your prayer burning. And the woman, Angela, who's with me in this picture, lives in Australia, and we together lit a lamp to unify our 2 sanghas. We felt a vibration a lot of the places we went. And we also felt vibration. There was a wedding in the street outside of our hotel. In the street. They don't rent a hall. They decorate the street. They put down a flooring. They put the walls up. They put this ceiling canopy. They decorate it with flowers. They hold a wedding. It's there for the period of time that it's there, and the next morning they tear it apart. For us, the next morning we heard the trumpets because it was around the block from our hotel. This is us first getting to Nepal, and the gate above my head there is the gate where we went through customs on a conveyor belt, outdoors, with armed guards. The gate on the other side is the gate to drive into our hotel there. Not just Buddhist deities, but Hindu deities are all over India, probably more so. Shiva and Ganesha are major deities revered, and the Buddha here by the fountain was a particular peaceful moment. One of the days that we went to sunrise 4 times. We got up whether we felt like getting up or not, and we had beautiful experiences from it. In Daman, we had the opportunity to see Mount Everest in the distance. I'm standing in that lowest picture with my roommate, France, and we are in the warmest clothes we packed because sunrise in the mountains was good and cold. The other picture is in the jungle because conditions are different. If you go just a mile downhill, you end up in the jungle. And we hiked to another shrine there. Our last stop of the pilgrimage was in Kathmandu, which is a major city of multiple millions. And within it is there are a number of small places within it that you have to have a ticket to get in. One of them is Bhaktapur, which is the cultural showcase. The carving and metalworking is there. Anahata in this is standing actually in a meditation bowl, standing in it, not just ringing one that's in your hand, one that's big enough to stand in. There were earthquakes over time, of course, and there were also human invasions and destruction. There was an earthquake while we were in Kathmandu. It woke some of us and didn't wake the others. It was about 4:30 in the morning. But one of their prides is the number of things that have managed to withstand that and that were not destroyed at the time. The sculptures that we found and could purchase or could just appreciate were major things, but the man on the side of here is named Lamath Lama, and he is a master artist, Tanka painter, and we spent a day at his home being taught Tanka painting. I didn't bring my Tanka painting with because it's not as good as that one, but it is beautiful. We saw monuments, monasteries, meditation gardens, all through the city. A lot of this is just outdoors. It's not like you have to go to a museum. You just stop the bus and spend some time walking to each of these places. The central picture there is what used to be a public bath, which is not used that way anymore, but as yet, they haven't decided to reclaim that to build something else. So, the top picture here is at a school called Atisha School. We danced with them. You probably saw the same background in the video. And then they put on cultural costumes and danced for us, which was just amazing. A different group got out and danced I'm a Little Teapot and sang it in Nepalese. It was recognizable. At the far end there, the carpet factory that we visited employs many of the parents whose children are in this school. The bottom picture is of the Swayayuma Stupa, where we had flags hung as part of our final day of our pilgrimage. And Anahata at the last picture is beside a whole bank of prayer wheels. Every prayer wheel turns, you turn them as you go by, you're sending the prayer out into the cosmos. And the last thing that we did together was agree that our vow continues to carry that prayer forward. Picture's too small for me to name all the people, and I'm not going to try. So, and then I flew back to India on my own, my last adventure, the thing I didn't want to leave that subcontinent without seeing. The front building here, the red one, is an entrance, a gate. You have to go through that to get to the Taj. It was built that way. Essentially, because if an army was coming, you could meet them at the gate and keep them out. Or if a dignitary was coming, you could meet them at the gate and process with them in. The architectural drawing is, the gate is in the red and black and the Taj is beyond it. It's at the edge of the river. From across the river, you attempt to be where you can see it. In my office in Janesville for 9 years, I had a photograph that the byline underneath said, "The best way out is often through." And it was a picture of this same place, which is at the Red Fort in Agra. This is what happens a lot across the river. It's the last slide. You want to see the Taj Mahal from this vantage point, but the air quality is the way it is. The Taj Mahal's over there, but you can't see it. This is our last hymn, and I'm going to have you not sing it, because we did. We started slowly, we went over. So we are going to go to the closing words. These are written by the Dalai Lama. The world is becoming smaller and smaller. Nations are far more interdependent than before. Our generation has reached the threshold of a new era of human history, the birth of a global family. Whether we like it or not, all the members of our vast and varied human family have to learn to live together somehow. We need to develop a greater sense of universal responsibility on both the individual and collective level.
What can we learn from Buddhism? It is possible to learn all kinds of lessons from Buddhism without having to follow it completely. For example, one can learn tolerance, without which life is unbearable, and the path leading to peace of mind, which is indispensable for actions to be just. This peace of mind is central to what we are looking for in life. It determines the attitude we have towards the world and towards our neighbor and our enemies too. Thank you for everyone joining us today. Please join us downstairs for coffee and conversation if you're able. That concludes our service today.